look, you've got two things. You've got your organisational culture. Do you trust? Do you have a route to call it out? Because often, whenever, I listen to many women and others, other underrepresented minorities as well, you'll hear this thing, it's happened, but it's not big enough to go to HR. And I don't want to have career penalty. And I get all of that. The trouble is, unless we do something about this, and unless organisations know about it, it's very, very difficult to deal with. So it's something about roots. There's something about leadership really getting this, because you won't believe something's going to happen unless you live it, unless you experience and you see action being taken around you. And then I think the other final point is around allyship. Even where an organisational culture is really supportive, it's still really difficult to do it. And that doesn't have to be, it shouldn't be that way. There should be others that are, you're lending your voice effectively. So where you see something that isn't right, it's be an ally. We released a film recently, and it's on my LinkedIn and it's on our website. It's called Stand Up, Speak Up. And it's got a line in it that I love, which is, if there's poison in the water, there's poison in the water. So basically, one person's going to drink it, we're all going to drink it. So what do? We need to be an ally, a visible and vocal ally. So, from a personal perspective, that's something we can all be, we can all do.
And for me, that's doing something very tangible and something very doable. So I can imagine that I'm sitting in a meeting, and even if it's not my meeting, I can still call on someone and ask a question for someone who perhaps unconsciously people haven't come to, or I can still call it out peer to peer when there's something that might impact, others, even if it's not impacting me. So it doesn't have to be that I'm writing some huge, terrifying letter to the head of HR,
right.
that in an everyday meeting, I am, making sure that I'm an ally. In an everyday working environment, I'm making sure that I'm an ally. Is that the kind of thing that you're seeing?
It is, and I would say, in when I was in my UK role, I'm obviously now in a global role, but in the UK, we had a big focus on allyship, but we actually introduced something called respect and inclusion advisors. So we didn't talk about D&I, we talked about R&I, and we basically said inclusion is underpinned at all times by respect, and if you do not experience respect, then something's wrong. We're not living our values, so we need to do something about it. And in response to that, it's not big enough to go to HR, I don't want to, we trained these amazing people and leaders in being somebody you could go to. So they were allies, but they were also there to give you practical help and just be by your side and come up with different ways. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? That made a massive difference. I would say for organisations that are really serious about this, that was something we did that I honestly think was responsible for the big culture shift that we had. That, and my CEO being massively engaged and taking action and doing the right thing regardless of seniority.
Well, there was the famous thing that you were talking about of the headline grabbing firings, which, firings aren't great at the best of times, but it was around
Deloitte, yeah, and it was, and it was that sort of, it was my CEO was doing his end of term interview and asked, what are you most proud of? He said the culture change we brought about is one of the things I'm most proud of. And then, the conversation went from there. And then we had the Deloitte fires. I think it was 20 partners for inappropriate behaviour. And yes, and you know what, we had exited. Equally, we'd had loads of partners that we'd educated to understand that, to Jen's point, something that was may have been okay back in 1960 is not okay now. And so it's not just about the extreme, it's about just a journey and educating, and generally that education works.